We have a special guest joining us now, though. Christine Handy is here. She is a breast cancer survivor and advocate, author of the book Walk Beside Me. Christine, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you.
It seems like it's a new week and a new study, and this one seems to be carrying a little bit of controversy. That there's a study out of Dartmouth?
Yes, it talks about whether you should or should not have a mammogram. And, of course, it's been a kind of a hot issue. Mammograms detect cancer in a breast 84% of the time, so that leaves 16% undiagnosed. There's a lot of reasons for that. Some of the reason is that some women have dense breasts. In particular, I had a dense breast. And dense breasts are about 50% of the population of women. And dense breasts are just more difficult to detect cancer in for a lot of reasons. And that's one of the reasons. There's also, when you do a mammogram, there's false positives, there's false negatives. And so there's this controversy on whether do or do not have a mammogram. I'm a big believer that you should have mammograms. I'm also a big believer that they should start at the age of 40. Many insurance companies would like to push that to 50, but I disagree with that. Younger women are getting breast cancer. It's touching younger generations, and we don't know why. But mammograms are our best defense as of right now. There are studies about different ways to detect breast cancer in the future, but they're not out yet. So mammograms is the best we got, and I'm a big believer in that.
You mentioned something about dense breasts. Is this something that has to be actually sensed through touch by a doctor or self-exam? Is that right?
Well, it's a very good question. Dense breasts are made up of fatty tissue and connective tissue, and this might be a little bit more over you want to talk about, but dense breasts, the fatty tissue and the connective tissue, the fatty tissue is black on a mammogram, and the connective tissue is white. If you look at a mammogram, the white tissue is difficult to look through to detect whether there is a tumor inside of that white tissue. So dense breasts in a mammogram are difficult, but there's newer digital mammography, and that does a better job at detecting breast cancer in all breasts. But you also talked about self-exam. I believe I was diagnosed at 42, and I found the tumor myself. I'm a big believer in mammograms, but also a big believer in self-exams, and also a big believer that you have to go see your gynecologist, your physician once a year. And those three combined are really our best defense for early detection right now. Of course, mammograms are 84% effective in detecting cancer. We need to figure out ways to detect breast cancer sooner. Because the other thing about mammograms is that if you detect breast cancer in a breast from a mammogram, the tumor is already formed, right? Mm-hmm. There's a tumor in your breast. So we need to find ways that we can detect breast cancer in your body before that tumor is formed.
Is there any DNA testing or anything that can really indicate any propensity?
That's a great question. There's a thing called a liquid biopsy, and it's been tested. It's tested for about 10 years, and it's not being used quite yet. In clinical trials, and the liquid biopsy could potentially detect breast cancer 5 years before a tumor is formed.
Wow.
Huh. It's revolutionary, and that is genomics. That's what all the genomic topics that we're talking about, and all this genomic testing. And that's the reason why we are even talking about liquid biopsy. And liquid biopsy is basically just a blood test, and it tests the different proteins in your body. And when a woman develops breast cancer, there's a different protein, there's a different antigen in her blood, and this could detect breast cancer way ahead before a tumor is formed. It's incredible, but it's not out yet.
Thank you for joining us today. Christine Handy, breast cancer survivor and advocate, author of the book Walk Beside